All right, so what do I think of Rolling Stone's list of the 250 greatest guitarists of all time? I'm just going to ramble on this one, so we'll see where it leads. But, my first reaction is that these lists are never designed to actually answer any questions. They're designed to make enough sense so that you think there's some logic behind them, and that there's got to be some legitimacy there. But then they're ridiculous enough, just enough to actually make people debate them, because that's really what they're trying to do, is get people to talk about them, debate them, keep them relevant. Because think about it, if the list actually made sense, then we would all just look at it, or most of us would look at it and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And that would be it, end of discussion. So they want it to be somewhat polarizing. Now, in looking at the list, right off the bat, I'll tell you it's not legitimate at all, because Roy Clark is nowhere on the list of the 250 greatest guitarists of all time. So you can't have any list that deals with guitarists and Roy Clark's not on it. That just right off the bat says, okay, it's not a legitimate list. I can't find any pattern of logic. I mean, are we talking about greatest guitarists in terms of their ability to innovate and push the boundaries of the instrument? Greatest guitarists in terms of their ability to do incredibly complex things that make other guitarists go, holy shit, how do you do that? Are we talking about guitarists that just had mass influence? You can be an incredibly influential guitarist without really being a guitarist that pushed any boundaries. People are going to hate me when I say this, and I am a huge fan of Led Zeppelin. But come on, as lead guitarist, Jimmy Page didn't push any boundaries. I would not put him up there as one of the technically greatest lead guitarists ever. What he was is an incredible producer, and he had stage presence. I mean, the dude had fashion. He had a look. And between great music from Led Zeppelin, very well produced, and that iconic look of a rock star, he has influenced a ton of people to want to be a rock star, to want to be a guitarist. So he had massive influence. So you don't have to be the greatest technical performer in order to have had massive influence. So are we talking about that? These are the musicians that had the greatest influence. There's no real pattern in there. And on top of that, greatest of all time, you've got musicians who have really only been out in the industry, in the public eye at a mainstream level, 4 or 5 years, maybe 10 years. So how do you take somebody that's only been out there for a pocket of time, and all of a sudden you're going to say they're the greatest of all time? Meanwhile, you're going to take musicians that had 50, 60, 70 years of influencing other musicians, and they're not on the list. So it's ridiculous. It really is. I mean, I look at it, I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, so I look at it and go, okay, Jimi Hendrix, number one. I can get on board with that. But then again, I ask the question, number one at what? To me, I'm a huge fan, so I would love to see that on there. But there's a number of other guitarists that are in that top 20 that honestly, in my list, they probably wouldn't even be on the list yet, or they would be much further down. And then you got people up there in the 150 to 250 range that it's just a joke that they're that far back. So in all, what do you take away from it? It's designed to do what I'm doing right now, to talk about it, to spur discussion and debate. And that's its only real purpose in life. So again, Roy Clark's not on it. So that right off the bat tells you this isn't a legitimate list. Just isn't.